Hello, all my relations. Welcome to another program here with Eagle and Condor. My name is Tony Gonzales, and this week we have a very special program for you, and that includes a member of the Chicano Indio community, Nane Alejandrez, and he's the executive director at Barrios Unidos, based out of Santa Cruz here in California. And Nane Alejandrez is a very special, unique person, works with prisoners, incarcerated men, women, and young people, juvenile hall, these institutions throughout California in particular. And Nane Alejandrez is also the recipient of the Justice Earl Warren Award, awarded by the ACLU. That was ACLU National Award for him in 2021, I believe. There's been other recipients of this prestigious award, which is no small thing here. And that includes Dolores Huerta, Rosa Parks, and Thurgood Marshall himself. So Nane is among them, and we really welcome him to the show. But also I'd like to make a few announcements, and in particular here in the San Francisco Bay Area, Oakland, the Movement Generation. It's a nonprofit organization, and Dana Velorita has announced the return of 43 acres of land in the Oakland Hills. The location is not yet to be announced, but it's been assured that 43 acres will be managed and led by a matriarchal or female-led movement. I want to thank, at this time in particular, another consistent, determined indigenous woman elder, and that is Corina Gould. As some of you might recall, about 5 years ago in 2015, 2016, that time there was a land back movement, if you will, in the Segura Reyate on the East Bay, and very successful in bringing attention, slowly but surely, one parcel, 1 acre at a time, as they say, my relatives, but land back is on the move. And those of you that might want to consider writing your will, you might want to include returning some of your land back to the local Indian in your community. I just wanted to mention that. Also, there is a very important water conference coming up very shortly now, August 15th and the 17th, and that will be held in Rapid City, South Dakota. And this is the Imni-Ki-Wakanyan Water is Sacred Conference, my relatives, finding solutions to water problems in Indian country and in general across the country. Indian people are not at the table when water is being discussed, and this is going to increase as we're going through a drought and bad weather and very short on water. Indian tribes, Indian nations will be seeking to maintain their security and their sovereignty, so they need to be on the table. And this summit, this conference in Rapid City, will include a discussion on water rights in regional negotiations and talks, because as of now, here in California, for example, California Indian people are not at the table. We're talking about water, and it's very sacred, my relatives. So this would be, as I said, Rapid City, August 15th through the 17th. For more information, register now at imnikiwakiyan.org. Let me spell that, MNIKIWAKAYAN.org, and register now for that conference. Also importantly, the 6th International Indigenous Corn Peoples Gathering, and this will be hosted in part by the International Indian Treaty Council, and that will be August the 27th through the 30th. That's toward the end of the month here, so for more information, my relatives, you can contact Chile Yazi at Chile Yazi, all one word, at hotmail.com, and that's Chile for Chile, and Yazi is Yazzie at hotmail.com. Or you can call Armando at the IITC, International Indian Treaty Council, at 520-338-4007 or 833-9797. That's for more information on this corn gathering. Very important. International indigenous peoples and others will be coming and talk about corn. And of course, the origins of corn. We might think how important it is now as it evolved, primarily around here in the southwestern U.S. region and on through Mexico, and made its way eventually through the Americas and onto the East Coast. But it's everyday food for indigenous people. So importantly, make this conference if you can. Okay, my relatives will be listening to Daniel Nane Alejandrez, and he'll talk to us about prison rights and his life journey, his commitment, and how he looks toward the youth for the future in our development. Nane, Daniel Alejandrez, welcome to the show, and if you would please introduce yourself, and talk to us about those different categories of our population, that you work with, the youth, men and women incarcerated, and lifers, and restorative justice in general. Please.
Well, first let me acknowledge the presence of this experience today. You just finished mentioning Jose Montoya, one of our great maestros in the art world, and in the Chicano movement, in the Chicano Pachucada. He brought not only art, but he brought a style, un estilo that's pretty much gone now. But the work of Jose Montoya, people like Ernie Palomino, Esteban Villa, and all those artists, they were there at our, when we were young people, and these were our elders, and so I come today, and I also, to be here to see live the teachings of Mazatzin, Guadalupe Acosta. We go back to Fresno, a long time ago, and we did some incredible work out there in Fresno and international. And you had a lot to do with some of the journeys that Mazatzin and I were involved by selecting us to go on these journeys. So much appreciated. It's a beautiful day here in San Francisco. Just came out to visit and to reflect on what we've done throughout these years, Tony. To be here, a lot of our compañeros, a lot of our relatives have left this world. They're in the spirit world now, and you kind of look at how did we survive. How have we, just in this room today, you got years and years of experience of movement, and the American Indian movement and the Chicano movement, and all movements across all our issues in the Chicano community. I am blessed to be here, to celebrate another day that I have the opportunity to do something for my people, do something for myself, and continue to in the struggle. Barrios Unidos as an organization that we started back in 1977, trying to deal with the issue of violence. Having been a veterano of the Vietnam War, and coming from that war to another street war in Fresno, just kind of, left you like, what happened here? What's happening? I was blessed to have been offered a job by another great friend of ours, Tomas Bachicha, at Tomas Fashion's clothing store in Fresno. And that kind of drew me to more to the Chicano movement. Because I had been exposed to the farm worker movement of Cesar Chavez before I went to Vietnam. Teachings of Cesar Chavez allowed me to call a strike at the age of 17 in the fields of Mendota, and organize young people. So by listening to what Cesar Chavez was talking about, what Tomas Bachicha, he would introduce you to every brother that came into the store, or woman, or leaders. That's where I met a lot of people that were involved in Fresno. So it gave me that opportunity to try to do something different other than drown in alcohol and drugs, which, I came back from Vietnam, a heroin addict, and that took me through a big different road. Not until I found the red road, and I was able to take care of myself. But throughout the 60s and 70s, my family too. By the time I came back from Vietnam, were deeply involved in the heroin business, and so that drove me right into it. And in 1975, 11 members of my family went to prison on a drug raid, and it just changed our whole dynamics of our family. Our family was a campesino family. We used to live in labor camps, out in the fields, in the tents, and all this stuff. But we were very together. And when we came to Fresno, and all of a sudden we are living in different neighborhoods, the family started to fall apart. And in the 70s, mid 70s, when this happened, it just changed the whole thing. And I was blessed that I had, maestros, that I was attracted to Jose Montoya. I was attracted to Ernie Palomino. I was attracted to, Gloria Hernandez, always, pushing, organizing. Bob Cruz, another brother that passed on. All these were Sapo, was taught me how to.
Veterano himself.
Yeah, Sapo taught me how to silkscreen, So you bring all that journey, and I went to Fresno City College on my GI Bill. I got married. Jenny Alejandrez joined me, and we had 2 children, and we were looking for a way out. I was looking for a way out of Fresno because my family was so deeply involved, and I was getting too deep in there. And out of Fresno City College, I was able to go to Santa Cruz, and I applied at UC Santa Cruz, and I got accepted. And that was probably the most important and most rewarding choice that I have made in my life, because Santa Cruz and the University of Santa Cruz just changed my whole world in terms of how I dealt with the issues that I was dealing with. So education, I always say that education saved my life, but it was all those people that pushed me and showed me a roadway, which includes you, and you must have seen something in me that allowed me to go on these delegations, international work. I had never been to Nicaragua. I'd never been to Switzerland. I've been around the migrant camps and around the country, but it was different to travel on a mission like that. And now to see Guadalupe Acosta be a maestro on such an important part of our culture gives me a lot of joy, and that we have accomplished a lot.
And for our viewers, listeners, as I refer to him as a veteran himself, you're a veteran, myself, and to me, I admire yourselves and Masatin and other veteranos, Chicanos and otherwise, but veteranos in general who have gone through military and yet come home with that responsibility that you take on and continue moving forward. And I throw myself in there too, And I work on it, based on my background. But men like yourself and Masatin and other veterans who have contributed tremendously in the communities, maybe for the actions of your involvement in war, such as myself, or just the responsibility that you take on, and that's admirable, because it is somewhat crippling, the experiences that we have had in war in Vietnam, and some people don't overcome it, aren't able self-medicate, and please, if you have to share that.
Well, when you experience war and you realize why they sent you there, that you had nothing to do with the Vietnamese people. They were not really our enemies. We were following orders to go, and I was drafted also too. But when you really study and see what war does and how wars are manipulated by governments, and when I found that out, in terms of what they were doing in Vietnam, was the whole heroin trade, or even the corporations that were benefiting from the war. Really, it kind of really, a lot of us just kind of gave up on the war. When I was in Vietnam, and that's where drugs came in so heavy. There was so many drugs that a lot of people don't talk about what happened to veterans that got involved in the drug trade in Vietnam, and how they came home and became addicts. There was a rise after the Vietnam War. There was a rise in heroin addicts in this country, and we had no support system. We weren't welcome back. We weren't. The VA did not come out and support us. So we just did what we had to do, and some of us went to the street drugs until finally we found our way back into, trying to take care of us. So war. I'm a veteran against the war, all wars, and I participated in actions and going to countries where the United States was waging war, and to try to talk about peace and try to talk about trying to get folks in our community to learn more about the reality of war. Having said that, I came back to deal with the street war, which was in the streets of California. And by being able to get myself straight on that, I was still a heroin addict, but I wanted something different. I wanted peace, and I wanted education. I wanted to bring my family out of that, my 2 children that I had at the time, to give them a better life than what I was doing in Fresno. But the move to Santa Cruz allowed me to grow, and so we started Barrios Unidos. We had conferences throughout the state talking about peace. We formed a coalition of end barrio warfare. We formed a coalition of Barrios Unidos after, and it just grew.
And you acquired a degree you graduated?
I got a degree. I got honors in my major and my thesis, and and Fernando Hernandez from La Brocha del Valle in Fresno was one of my advisors. And when I did my work study in La Brocha, so my thesis is about La Brocha del Valle,
right.
Fresno, So now, years later,
I don't want to take off so much, but please, can you describe the Brocha del Valle, the Colectiva de Artes?
Yeah,
Montoya was with the Colectiva.
Yeah, this is where like Ernie Palomino, Fernando, Sapo, Sal Garcia, and many others, that I can't remember all the names, but they formed this collective of artists to bring art to Fresno. You had the Royal Chicano Air Force in Sacramento with Jose Montoya, Esteban Villa leading that. You had, the East LA Streetscapers over there.
Magoo down there.
Magoo and a bunch of people out there. You had the San Diego crew with all the Chicano Park and doing all the murals.
These are activistas, cultural artists.
Yeah, and then we had Ernie Palomino, the godfather of Fresno art,
He was a professor of art.
He was a professor at Fresno State, and really sort of kind of gave us that we have our profe in Fresno, and it gave the opportunity to many artists to grow from there. And as you can see now, Arte Americas came out of there. You know, there's other art organizations, and then there's a whole bunch of new young artists coming out of Fresno. So even though Fresno's it is a hard place, it's you know, the poverty is incredible there. You know, there's the drugs, and you got a lot of things. You got all these prisons all around Fresno. You know, so you know, young people have a hard time. You know, and not only young people.
Still predominantly agricultural.
Agricultural, you know, yeah, you know, still, but you know, people have survived there, and a lot of us, you know, left because at that time there wasn't those opportunities. And whatever reasons we have, we still have that love for Fresno and the Valle. You know, my wife is from Sanger, you know, and we still connected to very much to it. Mm-hmm. You know, but getting back to Santa Cruz, you know, we were looking for land base. We're land-based people without no land, and as we talk about where are we going to set our foundation, what are we going to do? In 1997, we were able to acquire like a whole block there in Santa Cruz.
So while you were going to college in Santa Cruz and got your degree, and at the same time co-founded Barrios Unidos, and then moving forward.
And then moved on. You know, it took years. You know, the first 15 years of Barrios Unidos, it was you know, it wasn't incorporated. We operated on a volunteer basis, and then incorporated in 1993, and that's when we started to apply for grants and stuff, and formalized Barrios Unidos. Before it was a grito. It was a grito of you know. So we've actually we have, you know, if you count the years, we got like 45 years, going on 46 years of Barrios Unidos. You know, so it's a long journey, but acquiring the land put us in a different ways of looking at things. One is that all of a sudden people wanted to talk to us about, you know, how did we acquire the land and stuff. So we've had it for, you know, quite a bit now. So now we're developing for the next generation. How can we utilize that property for the future, you know, and that's what we're doing in pre-development right now. That property allowed us to get 5 acres of retreat land out in the mountains of Aptos, and that's where we have our outdoor kitchen, our outdoor classroom. We have tiny houses, tree houses, and we have our ceremonial grounds. We have 2 sweat lodges out there where, you know, dedicated to Floyd Westerman, you know, and Red Crow, and to Naiche, little Naiche Dominguez. And so people come from all over to the UP.
That's 5 acres up in the hills there.
5 acres up in the hills of Aptos, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so it's become like a relic, people to go and relax and get away from the concrete jungles, and, you know, have platicas, have circles, have ceremonies. And, you know, we have obstacle course out there that people can really go out there and relax. Today, you know, we're in the, you know, working in policy, working in the prison system for almost 30 years now, you know. And I love doing that work. I work with many lifers. I think that when I'm inside the institutions working with the men there, because you can't BS them and stuff, and the work is so important and so rewarding that's where I feel closer to the Creator, when I'm inside those institutions, you know, and the way the brothers send me respect, and, you know, because it's really rewarding, you know.
In your work with these lifers, you know, one would imagine, you know, your work is there for them forever in there, but you do have some success stories in seeking
a lot of success stories.
Can you describe? Yeah, because we're going to be watching a video. About some of this.
You know, before you had you had lifers that had no hope of getting out. You know, we had some governors that were not letting out people. You get, you know, a couple come out a year, five, six people come out a year. So nobody thought they were going home. And then we had this change in laws and stuff, and where people started to go home, and started to laws that changed some of those policies that had been enacted years ago, changed that allow people to go, especially
in the last 10, 15 years? Or?
Yeah, 10, 15, 20 years now.
Okay.
You know, people that got tried as adults when they were youth, now all of a sudden with Prop 57, were able to go to rehearing and to court again and reduce that life sentence. So we have a lot of folks coming. People will come home, you know, and that's the beauty that I get to see that. I work with many lifers inside, and then I see them out here doing incredible things. You know, just really taking life, you know, for what it is to them, and how much they can give back to the community.
Mm. And Nane, of course, a lot of them that are released, and not just lifers, but others incarcerated that are being released, they come back, they're in need of a job. Yeah. A lot of them become houseless, homeless very soon, if not having those social services or resources there. And you extended outreach to them. And
yeah, no, well, you know,
I wanted to get to you and the concept construction of little casitas, little houses.
Yeah, when people come home, get released, they get $200 out the gate and a handbook of, hey, go see this. But if you don't start from the inside to start working with your people, your community out there to do outreach, how you gonna, you know, people have been in there 20, 30, 40 years, no driver's license, no ID, you know, lost all the contacts, lost all the family members, you know, so they come home to a city that is not very welcoming, to a community that's not very welcoming. That's why we have to continue to educate ourselves, continue to be there to give them that support while they're inside, so that when they come out, it's a better transition. And take it that most people in prison are going to come home. We want them to come and be good neighbors, you know. And if we support them in that, and they will give back. I mean, there's the percentage in lifers going back to prison is like almost like at 2%, you know. So when you care for and you give them an opportunity, you know, it works. You know, people, you know, especially coming out to the Bay Area, where are they going to live? It's so expensive, you know. So they go to transition houses, and they live there, but it gives them an opportunity because they get most of them get their rent paid and support, so that they can save money, get a job, and then be on their own. But that whole process, if there's nobody there to, you know, to walk with them, you know, it's really hard.
The recidivism.
Yeah, because you know, the drugs is there, or they go to the same neighborhoods, and nothing's changed in the neighborhood, you know. So they fall right back into the same thing. And that's why it's very important, you know, that we have resources there to meet them.
And none of I wanted you to talk about the little casitas, that construction, because you were onto the concept and development, Barrios Unidos, in your backyard property.
Yeah.
You know, building these little. Now whole cities are building little casitas.
Yeah, you know, well, when we got the retreat center, we didn't have money to build a big building to house people or to stay there. But I found out that you could build tree houses, you know, or little sheds, 10 by 12s. And the tree houses, as long as you didn't put electricity or running water, it was a house, you know. So you can make it as big as you want to. So that we started doing that back in the late 90s, in the 2000s, in the early 2000s. And then it just kind of said, well, why don't we have tiny houses? You know, and the whole idea of tiny house came up. So in our center,
Like out of the woods and into the city.
Yeah. We have our tiny house village. We have our own mayor. We have reentry. We have students. We have elders. They come in and they utilize that. They stay there and then they save money and then they move on. But we constructed some of those tiny houses, and it doesn't take a lot when you got people that have the skills and have the will. And that's what we have. We have the will and the skills of people. We've created a tiny house for $1,500. Now it's a little bit more now, but you can create a nice tiny house for anywhere, from $7,000-$10,000, for a person to live in.
And provided the material.
But yeah, provide the material and everything, and if you have a roof over your head,
makes a big difference.
Makes a big difference. If you come out to the street, and all of a sudden you're in a houseless campground or something, it's sooner or later you're gonna fall.
Oh yeah, and Nane, for our listeners to know that you go inside the prisons.
Yeah.
And you visit. These are state prisons throughout California.
State prisons throughout California.
Soledad, Folsom.
Yeah, we're focused in Soledad
Tracy.
right now. Yeah, Tracy, they closed it, but we were there for 17 years.
And you visit, and I wanted to ask you, we're still in COVID, right? But the crisis is over. But talk to us a little bit about the prison life during COVID and how many men and women were being transferred around and catching it, and some dying.
Yeah,
guards.
We helped produce a video, a film on the COVID and what happened to the men. The men directly, they were affected by it. Men, how they were shifted from one prison to the other, and they stopped us from going inside. So for 2 years we couldn't go inside, talk to our relatives. Within those 2 years, a lot of abuses happened. A lot of folks were affected by it, and even some picked up more time, or they just they couldn't see their families. They couldn't have anything until later on. They started having visiting through video, but that human contact needs to be there. And so having the COVID, man, it's like people were dying inside. People that we knew died inside. And out here trying to survive, people. We never closed our center. We continued to serve the people coming down. We served the people, with our food pantry. Every Friday and Saturday, there's a line of people there, and many places shut down during COVID. We didn't do that. We didn't do that either for our ceremonies. We found ways to run our ceremonies to protect ourselves because we needed that. We needed to have that way of prayer, to continue. And talking to spiritual people around the country, that this is the way that we can do it and keep doing it. So we never had anything in our sweat lodges that affected COVID. It was limited. Sometimes the sweat leader would be the only one that would speak. Everybody else had paños or handkerchiefs. But we needed the ceremony. We needed the song. We needed to hear them. We needed the sweat. And that's how we survived through.
That sense of normalcy.
Yeah, because you shut down. I mean, we're still getting effects by young people. What happened to young people that were shut down for 2 years? And so that's an effect that we're going to be still dealing with. And then you have just natural disasters that happen that we got to attend to those communities that are very, very poor.
And then we're continuing with the pandemic and how that affected the prison systems here in Califas, California, for example. Of course, it brought on the isolation. It brought the medical conditions and the serious, situation, the COVID-19 spreading like that, and I wanted to ask about the communication. Was there any hindrance in their ability as prisoners or incarcerated people to communicate, or how was it before and after?
Well, the communication at some point just kind of stopped for a little while. And then people were allowed to use some of the phones they have there, but it it was a limited use. And as it went on, people started to say, well, we got to communicate. And then as they started to open up more and more, then they came out with this, they would use tablets, where people could communicate with it. And that's what, it's taken a while to get to the institutions. Not all institutions have them.
Oh, I see.
But now a person can have a tablet and be able to communicate with,
like an
their
iPad.
family. Like an iPad, yeah, with their family members. You could send pictures, emails. It all costs, too. So,
oh, I see.
But they can make phone calls and stuff. And they got a friend saying that nowadays in the afternoons it's kind of quiet around there because most people are inside their cells communicating with their family members.
Oh, that's very interesting. And, thank you. That's very insightful. Yeah. Particularly for the public who many times are unaware of the goings on, particularly of men and women incarcerated and what rights they have, and including the work that you've provided for us and working with lifers.
And I was going to mention that one of the things we have what we call a prison trailer. And the reason we created this prison trailer is because it was modeled after the security housing unit, and we were trying to use it as a way to let people know what was going on in these institutions. And so it provided that, but it also allowed people to come in, family members to come inside, because the public or relatives have access to the court system or the visiting room. And they don't know what's behind what the relatives are going through. So we created this replica would allow a person to go in there and see the conditions that they were in. And if it was security housing unit, how they spent 23 hours a day there for years and years and years. And they come home, and very different. And so that gave a understanding to the people of what was happening behind the walls and stuff.
No, that's interesting. And now we're coming close to the hour here, and I wanted to ask you, what are the continuing with your work with these individuals incarcerated, both youth and adults, and including lifers, of which we will be seeing a video of testimony, including yourself working with some of these individuals who have been freed. But what are the challenges, for example, the next, let's say, 20 years or so, and particularly working with youth, the young people today?
One of the good things that happened is that as of June 30th, DJJ, Department of Juvenile Justice, has shut down. So now they're sending those youth, 600 youth, they're going to go back to their communities, and the county now is responsible. What we have to do is we have to keep an eye on those counties, make sure they do adequate, have adequate facilities and provide resources, and that the community, CBOs and the community is more involved in that, and continue to monitor the prison system. We gotta stay involved. We gotta keep going. We gotta offer programs, and prepare ourselves like we're trying to do at Barrios. Our next phase is this development, the Barrios Unidos Peace Institute. I've been there 45 years, a little over 45 years, and I'm transitioning in the next few years. Doesn't mean that I go away, pastor or anything. It means that I just don't do the day-to-day. But this development, because we want to make sure that people in Santa Cruz, born and raised people in Santa Cruz that are involved with us, have a place to live. We're talking about elders, we're talking about returning citizens, students, the staff, and artists, and others that we will provide, 30 to 50 units, plus our program space. So that's the next journey for Barrios Unidos. We are in the fundraising trail right now. We need to raise quite a bit of money from the public, from individuals, from institutions that can see the dream. They can see what we've been done in these 45 years, and we want to make sure that the next generation of peace warriors have a place to stay, have a place to work out of.
And Nani, I don't want to close, yet before you speaking about a good friend that just passed the spirit world, Harry Belafonte,
Yeah.
world-renowned legend. But he was a peacemaker himself, both civil rights, with many notable civil rights leaders, including Martin Luther King, etc. But yet he found time to reach out
Yeah.
to the Chicano community, people like yourself, and because he was into coalition building and teaching that. What can you tell us about this great warrior, Harry Belafonte, and his passing?
Well, last week I was on a radio show and I did a tribute to Harry Belafonte, Mr. B, as we called him. A man that last 30 years was mentoring me, and I had heard about this man and that he walked with Martin Luther King, he Nelson Mandela, and he did all these incredible things. He gave most of his money away to causes. He gave money to American Indian movement. He went to Wounded Knee. He was friends with AIM. He was friends with Chicanos. He was friends with a lot of people that were I traveled with him to meet with Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. I traveled with him to Tanzania, to Kenya, and many, many neighborhoods. Such an incredible man that you think, what he saw in me that he brought me in. And Mr. B would bring you in and make you feel like you're part of it. He just wouldn't leave you on the sideline. You'd have to be involved. He'd get you to speak at different places, different times. You weren't, and you had to say something, because if you didn't say anything, he wanted to give you a scolding. Plus, he'd never invite you back again. But he gave you a platform. He used his platform to bring others.
There you go.
And that's I much respect to that man.
So
and
commendable.
all
Yes.
the doors that he opened for me. And to this day, I am blessed. I'm honored. He introduced me to presidents in other countries that I have never met a president here in the United States. And that's the kind of man he was.
Can imagine that, commendable person extraordinaire.
Yeah.
And Nani, I want to thank you for your time. I also want to congratulate you, both you and your spouse, Jenny.
Yes.
The 50-year anniversary
Coming up.
of being together. You've gone to hell together to develop, an institution like Barrios Unidos, such as you have, and life, raising children. And
we both walked that journey. July 9th, we had 50 years this year.
Okay.
And we raised 2 boys and a girl, and 7 grandkids and 3 great grandkids, and we expect to have more. But Nana didn't walk it alone, and if it wasn't for Jenny, I wouldn't be sitting here, talking to you about all these things that have happened, because she is the anchor to a lot of this.
Well, I want to thank you, and Jenny too. I've known both of you together in Fresno since the early mid-70s, 1970s, the last century, my relatives. But I want to thank Daniel Nane Alejandrez, Executive Director, Barrios Unidos, based in Santa Cruz, and he's got a little 5-acre spot just in the mountains, just in Aptos, where they're developing their cultural and spiritual direction to finding justice, social justice, restorative justice, and all those parameters in unity with community. I want to thank you very much, and we'll have Nane on again, because we want to help in the construction development of Barrios Unidos.
Thank you, Tony, because you've had an incredible impact in my life. You sent me on those journeys and set me on the path after I came back from Vietnam. You and Tomas are 2 of my greatest teachers and stuff. So thank you for all you've done. Oh.
Thank you very much, Nane Alejandrez.
Peace.
Hope.
For many years, I couldn't call myself a peace warrior because I wasn't at peace, you know. And it took time and time, you know, to realize what a peace warrior is the way that I would walk. Since 1977, I've been trying to teach myself how to be a nonviolent person. In 1977, I almost killed a man. I stabbed him. How can I do that and now I'll call myself a peace warrior? That's why it took so long. I had to shed all that. I had to learn how to walk a different life. My name is Nane Alejandrez, currently director of Santa Cruz Barrios Unidos, organization that we started in 1977 to address the issue of violence. Well, you know, when we started talking about stopping the violence, we were out on the street trying to create peace and you know, stopping one group from attacking the other group and just being on scene. But by that time, there had been created these organizations within the prison system, and our numbers started to shoot up in terms of people, black and brown people inside the institutions, and so organizations were forming there. People were coming out with, you know, some respect in the streets, starting stuff out here, and it just kind of expanded. The violence was expanded. And we knew that if we wanted to address that group, we needed people from the inside to put the word out, to talk to people, to educate some of those folks about what was happening to our own people. And so we started to go into the institutions. The majority of the guys that we were talking to had been there for a long time. And I remember, you know, after a few sessions going in there and saying, you know, we're going to be here till all you guys, you know, till all you guys go home. And they all kind of looked at each other, turned around and says, hey, bro, I says, we're all lifers. We're never going to get out. And I was going like, oh, okay. Well, we'll be here anyway, you know. But one day you will be going home. You'll be out. And that's kind of how the whole thing about lifers started, that lifers had no hope, you know, because very few people were getting out. You know, we had governors that were not, you know, hard on crime. They were not letting no lifers out. So you had, you know, 4 or 5 come out a year, and sometimes there'd be nobody coming out. So they had lost hope that they were never going home.
From as far back as I can remember, 3, 4, 5 years old, whatever it was, I remember my father beating my mother, you know. Then the violence started on me. I was lost. And the guys in the streets, the gangs became my family, you know. I was a blood, specifically 62nd Street Brims. That's what gang I was from. I lived it, died it. I was so engulfed and so committed to that gang. You know, the gang was everything to me. My family came before everything. In 1986, 2 of my close friends that was in the same gang with me was shot. 1 was killed. A 19-year-old was killed. 13-year-old was shot 5 times. Later on that day, we had a meeting at the park and we retaliated. And I participated in the brutal, horrible killing of Gervon Hall. I was arrested a couple of weeks later, tried and convicted, sentenced to 25 years to life. I remember being scared to death, going there on the bus ride and hearing all the stories about people getting killed and stabbed and shot. But then 2 or 3 months in prison, I felt like I was at home. I was right back to my old ways, you know, that got me to prison. For 16, 17, 18 years, I continued to live like that, in and out of the hole, in and out of trouble.
I met Sam Cunningham in several of the self-help groups that I facilitated. And Sam was a very reluctant participant, and he'd give me the look like, I'm going to get you for this, but he would have to participate. We became very good friends, and Sam made some changes in his life through the help of the self-help groups that we participated in together.
I started going to these groups in 2002. So Craig had been in prison 12, 13 years before me. So when I was at 17, 18 years, Craig was already at 30 years. So already had been on that road to, figuring stuff out and getting this stuff together. And Craig was just always in there with this upbeat attitude, and I couldn't stand him because I said, no man in prison should be this happy. No man in prison should be this positive. But after about a year or two, putting up with Craig, I started wanting what Craig had. Peace in the midst of all of that confusion and turmoil. And Craig actually became a mentor to me and so many other guys that left way before him, that he had earned it way before us.
I'm from Salisbury, Maryland. I came out in the Army to Fort Ord, and I landed in Manhattan Beach. And I got in a situation in which I shot and killed George Mashaw. Shot him once in the stomach and once in the side of the head. And they labeled it an execution-style murder.
I've walked with many, many lifers that, didn't have that expectation to get out, and seen them through the process of how they started to change within themselves.
After I went to the board in 2005, a question was asked to me by one of the commissioners. He said, Mr. Cunningham, why did you participate in such a brutal murder of a human being? If he would have pulled out $1 million and the key to the front door at the prison, right there on that moment, and said if I gave him an adequate answer, they would give me $1 million and a free pass out of prison, I would have been broke and stuck in prison because I didn't even know why. But that started me on a journey to figure out why.
When we started to go in, we took Aztec dancers, we burned sage, we took singers, rappers, storytellers, elders, young people. So you bring that in, you bring in the spirit, you talk positive, you show up, you keep showing up. That's the medicine. And now it's up to the individuals to take the medicine.
I continue to go to the board. I got a 2-year denial in 2005. I went back in 2007, another 2-year denial, go back 2 years, 3-year denial. I ended up going to the board 6 times from 2002 to 2012, getting denials, saying I wasn't suitable for parole, I was still a threat to society, et cetera, et cetera. Not because of any recent activity in prison, but because of my long history of, on the streets and my first 20 years in prison. So I kept getting denied in 2016. 2016, I went to the Board of Prison Terms for the 7th time after 6 denials. So in there, I said, when they asked me, we got to the part of hearing, they asked me about that. I said, look, I've been playing word semantics with y'all for 6 years. And I told them everything I told y'all earlier. All that is 100% accurate. I say, I couldn't tell anybody in that group, you better go do this or you better go do that. But the majority of the 30 or 40 people were 15, 16, 17-year-olds that looked up to me and respected me, and I used that to manipulate them into retaliating and going to commit this murder. I knew I was a big homie, and I used my status in this gang and my influence over these younger dudes to make that happen. And when I kept them honest with that, and I think the Lord said, okay, it's your time, and I truly believe that even though I felt like I did all the work I was supposed to do at them other 6 years, I wasn't ready. I hadn't met Nane yet. I hadn't met Barrios Unidos yet. After 6 denials, and was granted parole in March 11, 2016. So last month made 6 years that I've been out.
When people come out, if they come to our area, we make connection with them and try to provide the whatever resources that we have. They've been there, 25, 30 years, 40 years. So they have to start all over.
I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what was going on. So I called Nane and told him, man, good news, I'm coming home. Bad news, I don't have anywhere to go. He immediately, and this man doesn't know me from anywhere but a prison, but he immediately said, come here, I got you. I got you, come here.
Good afternoon. My name is Nane Alejandrez. I'm the founder and director of Santa Cruz Barrios Unidos, a community organization that grew out of the madness of the streets in urban streets in California. We started in 1977 addressing the issue of violence and disparities in our community. We knew back then that there was something happening, not happening in our communities that we needed to address. Since then, we have traveled many journeys, many states, many nations that we've taken our mission of Barrios Unidos, stop the violence, education, stop incarceration, the school to prison pipeline. And now we're faced with houseless issues. We're faced with the COVID-19 that has really affected our communities. We were hurting already, and we're even hurting more today. So our mission is to try to address all these issues as we journey through this path of social justice and trying to bring cultural and spiritual awareness, because we really believe that the being connected spiritually, culturally, really helps us to survive and continue to help others. So we thank you for the support. We thank you for seeing what the work, really looking at the work that we've been doing for many years, and we continue to help others, continue to help ourselves, and we thank you again for looking out for us. Thank you.
Always keeping that connection with the people that you were locked up with and the people that you left behind. That is so important.
Hi, this is Buffy St. Marie. I'm here to support public access and SF Commons in San Francisco. Be sure to watch Eagle and Condor, our indigenous native show produced here in the Bay Area.